Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Also available on Anchor for the audio of the shows. And today we have a special show, number 4, I think it is, in our Legends series that we're doing on the podcast. And we're joined today by Alan, West Ham fan. Alan, how you doing, my man?
Oh, great. All good.
Good. Looks a lovely day out there. Anyway, that's the main thing. It keeps the old spirits high during these times.
That's it.
So I guess being a West Ham fan, people probably may have already guessed, but they may have guessed Tony Coddy. But we're not doing Tony Coddy. We're doing the one and the only Paolo Di Canio.
Yeah, also known as God to us.
That's it.
That Man United fans have King Eric, well, we have God. So
it's a kind of a strange one with Paolo Di Canio, isn't it? Because he didn't kind of stay anywhere very long, but everywhere he went, he left his mark. You know, there wasn't that sort of 10-year or 15-year or 20-year career at a club, but everywhere he went, he left something that would be spoken about forever in football time when you think about it.
Yeah, he's definitely a fine line between insanity and genius with Di Canio. The short spell he had at Celtic, the Celtic fans adore him. He was only there for 7 months. You know, Sheffield Wednesday, that was really a black cloud over that time. West Ham, he became a legend in only 4 seasons. That says it all about the man, really, you know.
Yeah, it's he was a man that was he always towed that fine line, if you like, between, you know, the genius and the amazing and the controversial, if you like, you know. I suppose just before we get into the West Ham one, I mean, we have to sort of set the scene here. The scene is Harry's taking a risk and he's coming into West Ham on the back of a ban for the push on Paul Alcock, the referee, which ended up in an 11-game ban, which to me is outrageous when you look at what happens these days, and a £10,000 fine, which these days would be very light. If you'd imagine what Paolo Di Canio would be paid today. But he really felt there was an injustice done in terms of the punishment, didn't he?
Yeah, he really thought that Paul Alcock milked the whole situation. And if you even watch the video, it's the worst dive you've ever seen in football is from the referee. You know, he does push him. There's no doubt about that. That can't be justified. You can't put a hand on an official. But the stagger, the fall over, you know, it was just so over the top from the referee, you know.
This is WWE wrestling stuff, really, isn't it?
Yeah, big time. But I just want to mention this, that the funniest thing of that whole Sheffield Wednesday Arsenal game had to be Nigel Winterburn having a go at Paolo Di Canio as he goes off the pitch. And Di Canio turns at Nigel Winterburn, and Nigel Winterburn jumps about 5 feet in the air. And I think it was Winterburn not realising what he was doing and then realised, oh, this is Paolo Di Canio. This guy is dangerous. Yeah. And the funny thing is, when about 2 years later, Nigel Winterburn signed for West Ham, when Di Canio was still there, and the two of them were best of friends, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, Nigel Winterburn would have been no slouch either, like, you know what I mean?
No, Nigel, like, you can't be a defender at the time. Arsenal, you're talking 98. Arsenal were in the peak of their games, so you'd have to be tough enough there with Martin Keown and that in that defence, you know.
Yeah, and then I mean, you're coming into a West Ham as well that doesn't tend to sign slouches either. You know what I mean?
These at that time when Winterburn came in, like, Neil Ruddock was there, and I know everyone slags off Neil Ruddock, but he done really well at West Ham, and with Gary Charles, with some really good defenders there at that time when Nigel Winterburn came in. Stuart Pearce, I think Pearce had just left when Winterburn came in, and Ian Pearce came in, and Christian Daly, like, so there was some decent defenders, you know.
Yeah, imagine Stuart Pearce and Paolo Di Canio. My God, there's a main event for Eddie Hearn, eh?
Yeah, well, the big thing you're just talking about, that we had Julian Dix and we brought in Razor Ruddock, And the big joke at the time was, well, why don't we just sign Vinnie Jones? And that's it. No one's ever going to get past the West Ham defence, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into Paolo then. 99 to 2003. Short enough career, but, you know, it doesn't take long. If you're a legend in the game, you can create moments, you know, in no time at all. Comes into West Ham in 99, 118 games, 47 goals, and some serious goals. Helps to seal the UEFA, the Intertoto Cup qualification.
And won it, yeah.
Yeah, signed for West Ham for no less than 1.5 million. Absolute snip.
No,
Imagine that man today in his prime, what he would be.
Stuff. You know? But like as I say, in 2001, Alex Ferguson tried to sign him. So what does that tell you about the man? You know, that was just before United really the Beckhams, the Scholes, the Giggses and all that was just as all that was starting. So he was looking at bringing in the Canio. I think I know Eric Cantona had left a couple of seasons earlier, but I think he was looking for that sort of character back in Man United, and I think he thought that Paolo Di Canio was the perfect replacement for Cantona.
Absolutely. Well, you look at him. I mean, Harry came out. If there was ever a manager that's going to control a man that's a bit sort of, you know, toes that kind of controversial line, Harry Redknapp would be that man anyway, because Harry's kind of a straight shooter. There's no messing around with Harry Redknapp. But he did say at the time being interviewed, he said there's no doubt he was taking a chance. And he said that, you know, he can do things with a ball that no other man, that only other players dream of. And that's a summary really of Paolo Di Canio, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you've seen the interview with Harry Redknapp when he went into the West Ham CEO, Peter Storey, and says, I want to sign a certain player. And your man told him, you can sign anyone you want as long as it's not Paolo Di Canio. And he went, well, actually, it is Paolo Di Canio. And it said he said it took 2 hours to convince Peter Storey to take a chance on him, you know?
Yeah. Because
they were all, again, the dark cloud of pushing the referee was still hanging over him. That was still fresh then, you know. It was only, 6 months earlier, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So he comes in, scores his first goal for West Ham, 27th of February.
Yeah, 4 games in, yeah.
Yeah, against Blackburn Rovers. So the Paolo Di Canio era begins. He helped to achieve the highest position, 5th, and qualify for the UEFA Cup through the Intertoto Cup. So West Ham are beginning to reap the rewards of signing this man that seemed like, you know, could have been a dodgy sort of take a chance sort of situation, but it looks like it's working out. Harry's doing all the right things.
Well, Harry had said that he had to tell the other players not to tackle Paolo Di Canio in training, because he was so passionate about football that he would retaliate, teammate or not, you know. And I've heard stories like Joe Cole. Joe Cole used to follow him around like a lapdog. You don't remember, Joe Cole was only 17, 18 at the time when Di Canio was there. And Di Canio was interviewed, and he was saying about Joe Cole used to follow him into the canteen. And whatever Paolo Di Canio ordered for his lunch, Joe Cole would order exactly the same. He said he'd such a big influence over the young players that Paolo Di Canio was the first one to turn up at training, the last one to leave, and would always stay on and watch the juniors playing, and then hang around after the junior game and talk to all the young players. He said he was an unbelievable professional and such a football man, like, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, if you weren't a West Ham fan and you didn't understand that or have read it, you would think that would be further from the truth in terms of Paolo Di Canio. But it's a measure of the man as a professional. 98-99, he was voted the Opta Player of the Season. Picked up the award. And he scored the BBC goal of the season in March 2000 with a flying volley against Wimbledon. Talk to me about that goal.
I still think that's his second best goal for West Ham.
Really?
Yeah, there's one that's better, man. Is definitely in the 3-2 win at Chelsea. He scored 2 goals against Chelsea that day, but the first one, it's kind of like Ray Houghton against Italy, if you remember that goal where he comes in from the right hand side, but he flicks the ball up with his right foot, about 2 foot in the air, and doesn't break stride, nothing. hits the ball on the volley from about 25, 26 yards out and buries it. You want to see the power in that shot. And if you get to Google it, do Google it. But it's definitely Paolo Di Canio's greatest goal, you know.
Excellent. It's good to see a slightly different viewpoint on it, but sounds equally as amazing.
It's some strike, you know.
Yeah. In a Sky Sports viewers poll in 2009, they named the Premiership goal of the decade as that Wimbledon goal, and it got 30% of the votes. So the Wimbledon goal is always synonymous with him. But I mean, he's a man who scored dozens of brilliant goals when you think about
it. Yeah, like that goal against Wimbledon. A lot of people go on about the Canio's finish, which is unbelievable. He's in the air. He kind of like bicycle kicks it. He catches it with the outside of his right foot, buries it in. But the cross from Trevor Sinclair is unbelievable. Right from the far right-hand side of the pitch, across the 18-yard box, right to the far post, and the Canio hits it. It was an unbelievable strike, like, yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you look at that cross as well. You would have thought that Canio would have been thinking about nearly squaring it back into the box, because the actual angle in which the ball goes in is like, you know, it's pinpoint precision, really, in terms of where he put it, you know.
And the height of the ball as well, it was really there to be knocked back into the 6-yard area, you know.
Yeah, but he took it on and was named Hammers Player of the Year that year as well by the fans, which I suppose is kind of fitting in terms of the season that he had. You know, he was outstanding for you most of the season, you know. December 2000, the game against Everton. I'm sure you remember. This is the one where the keeper went down after twisting his leg.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And the ball is crossed in.
Of course, yeah. Paul Gerrard was the keeper, I think.
Paul Gerrard was the keeper, yeah.
And I think he dislocated his knee.
Yeah.
Clearing the ball. It goes out, I think, to Trevor Sinclair again. And I think Sinclair shoots it in. The Canio's on the 6-yard line, on the 6-yard box with an open goal, and he jumps up and catches the ball.
Yeah.
And I think it was 1-1 at the time. And I remember Harry Redknapp saying that if he had went on and lost the game, he would have throttled the Canio. But it goes to show you the character of the man. He knew the keeper was genuinely injured, you know, and I think the Canio, that just speaks volumes of him, you know. And there you go. He goes and wins the Premier League Fair Play Award, UEFA Fair Play Award, FIFA Fair Play Award. Yeah. What, 12 months earlier, 16 months earlier, he was banned for 11 games for pushing a referee, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a turnaround story, really, isn't it? It's nearly like the rags to riches story, except he was always paid reasonable, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Canio, like, you know, we know he started in Lazio, he went to Juventus. One season at Juventus just didn't want him. They sent him to Milan. They didn't want him. And he was basically ran out of Italy. And Celtic were the only team basically that would take him. So, like, he was at a very high level, obviously playing for Lazio, Juventus, and Inter Milan. Like, you know, so to go from there down to Celtic, that must have seemed like a major drop. No disrespect to Celtic or anything. But he just loved football. And I think it was a case he didn't care where he played as long as he played.
Yeah. Well, I suppose when he was thinking about, you know, getting away from the Italian league and getting ran out of Italy, there's not much further you can go than
Scotland.
Think about it, you know. But I'd remember back that time as well. I mean, Celtic and Rangers were playing a very, you know, they were playing top football at the time as well. You know, that was a very good Celtic side that he went to as well.
That's right. They were in Europe every year.
Yeah,
they were doing very well, you know.
Yeah,
and it was the Celtic Rangers that were making that league competitive for each other because both teams were very, very strong.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned earlier, Sir Alex comes in, wants to sign the man.
2001. I seen the Canio interviewed on this, and he said that the offer was made from to go to Man United, but he chose to stay at West Ham because basically West Ham saved his career. Prior to leaving Sheffield Wednesday, his representatives had approached in 1999, had approached nearly every team in England, and no one wanted him. And he said Harry Redknapp took the chance on him. So he kind of felt it would have been a bit of a slap in the face to Harry Redknapp to to leave West Ham at that time. And you got to remember, like, at that time we were finishing like 5th, I think in 99. I think we were 9th or 10th in 2000, you know. And then in 2001, 2002, under Glenn Roeder, like, we finished 7th with a very high points rate, you know. Yeah. And I think, you know, he could have easily went to Man United, took the money and the glory, but I think I don't know why he stayed. Years later, I seen him interviewed, and he's so proud of his time at West Ham. He loves West Ham. He loves everything about West Ham. He loves the fans. And, like, there was 2 players, Thomas Repke. I don't know if you remember Thomas Repke.
I do, yeah.
The Croatian defender. Him and the Canio got West Ham tattoos at the same time. Yeah. Massive, big tattoos. And he's so proud of this, you know. Yeah. There's not many players, like, you know yourself, in today's modern game. Players change clubs. You know, you could have 5, 6 clubs, or in Peter Crouch's case, 100 clubs. Yeah. But, you know, you don't know who you're going to be playing for. So to get a club you're playing for tattooed on you, like, that shows something, you know.
Yeah. Thomas Repka will be the one who rocked that amazing mustache, didn't he?
Thomas Repke was he's one of my favorite players we had, again, because he's like the Canio in his craziness. He does some mad stuff, but he was a good, solid defender.
Yeah.
I actually read something recently that he's actually in prison in Czech Republic for assault or something, you know.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, he
was a big man as well. He was a big man as well. But I always remember the mustache. The mustache could never make up whether it wanted to be blonde or brown. It couldn't make up its mind. That's what I remember Thomas Repka for, you know. Mad, like, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately we've had some psychopaths, you know, that come in and out, as I say, Neil Ruddock and Julian Dix, Marco Boogers, of course. But Marco Boogers had a very short career at West Ham. But I don't mean to go off the point, but he's always remembered for the greatest thing he ever done, which was tearing Gary Neville over after 30 seconds on the pitch and got a red card. So he'll always be loved at West Ham for that one, you know.
Absolutely. I suppose with the Canio, I mean, it'd be hard not to show loyalty to Harry Redknapp. He's such a footballing man, you know what I mean? It'd be hard to do him a disservice, you know. And I suppose with the Canio as well, he had probably experienced so many clubs that were disloyal to him. You know, it would, like, for West Ham to be so loyal to him and take him in at a time where others would have shunned him without a shadow of a doubt, you know. I mean, I suppose it was the right decision to make, you know.
I agree with what you're saying there. I don't think there's many managers would have been able to handle the Canio like Harry Redknapp did. There's a very famous game against West Ham and Bradford in 2000, 5-4 to West Ham. That game had everything. 3 minutes into the game, Shaka Hislop breaks his leg. Young Stephen Bywater made his debut. We took the lead. It was 2-2 at half time, I think. They went 4-2 up. The Canio wanted to come off because he felt he'd had 3 stonewall penalties that the ref just blew away. He came off the pitch. He sat on the ground with his back to the Horden, and Harry Redknapp had to go over and literally physically grab him and get back on the fucking pitch, like, you know.
Yeah.
And then West Ham won a penalty. Him and Lampard basically pulled the arms off each other to see who takes the penalty. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
The Canio takes the penalty anyway and scores. The Canio wins the ball, sets up Joe Cole to equalise at 4-4, and then puts in a cross from the far left-hand side of the pitch, right into the box, right to the feet of Frank Lampard, who volleys it in for a 5-4 win. I mean, the game had everything. The Canio won man of the match for that game. Well, it had to be the craziest game of football ever. It had everything with the exception of a sending off, really.
Yeah, it was absolutely.
That game, if anyone ever gets a chance to Google it or look at it, that is the good, the bad, and the ugly of Paolo Di Canio. You know, his brilliance as a footballer, him sulking, things not going his way, the fighting with his own players, you know, it's everything that is the passion of Paolo Di Canio, you know.
I remember him trying to get the ball off Lampard and like it was you know, it was slow enough, and Lampard having words with him, and him in Lampard's ear. And I just remember Lampard looking back to Redknapp, going, "What the hell?" And all I could think of watching that game was, Jesus, he better score. If he doesn't score, it's gonna be murder. You know?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're safe hands with the Canio. The Canio took 11 penalties for West Ham. He scored 10. One was saved at Aston Villa, was actually saved, I think, by Peter Schmeichel, but he scored the rebound. Yeah. So technically, he has a full 11 goals out of 11.
Yeah, we're giving him the 11. We're giving him the 11.
Yeah, oh, yeah, definitely.
No doubt about it. Like, 2003, you mentioned Glenn Roeder there.
Yeah.
Look around with Glenn Roeder. Dropped from the first time.
Yeah, well, Glenn Roeder came in, was a bit of a surprise when Glenn Roeder came in, and there was a lot. I remember at the time talking to other West Ham fans, and we were kind of really, he's a Newcastle man, you know what I mean? He'd been a Newcastle player. Why are West Ham giving him a chance? And when he came in, I mean, we finished 5th under him, we finished 9th under him, and what happened then? Sorry, ears fell out. What happened then was, I think it was in December that year, we had 16 points and we're bottom of the league. And the Canio had approached Glenn Roeder about changing the system. And like, how can we go from the system we played last season and being so good to playing the way you're playing this season, and we're so bad and there's no sign of us getting out of this? And Glenn Roeder had said to Paolo Di Canio, like, this is West Ham United, not Paolo Di Canio United. And Di Canio's reply was, well, I am West Ham. And Glenn Roeder dropped him. And he didn't come back again till, I think, the third last game of the season when Trevor Brooklyn took over after Glenn Roeder's illness. And the first game was Chelsea. He scored the winner in a 1-0 win at Chelsea. And then in the last game of the season, we needed a win only. And Di Canio scored an 89-minute equaliser against Birmingham. It wasn't enough for us to stay up. But him and Roeder, for some reason, when Glenn Roeder first came in, they had a brilliant relationship, and Glenn Roeder spoke nothing but highly of Paolo Di Canio. And within the start of that season, that last season, and Christmas time, the two of them had fallen out, and it was basically two football men arguing over what's best for the club, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's safe to say that fallout cost you your place in the Premier League.
Definitely,
without
definitely.
A shadow.
I think that season, I think Di Canio only made all season 18 appearances, and most of them were before Christmas. And then, as I say, he was dropped out of the team and made the last 3 games under Trevor Brooklyn. But if Di Canio had been in there, definitely we would have stayed up, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about a team in the previous 2 seasons had been pretty competitive for European places and pretty competitive at the top end of the league. You know what I mean? So, like,
yeah, I mean,
the fall off is monumental, really.
The year before, like, we'd finished 7th, and I think we 50 points, 52 points, 53 points, something like that season. And like, which is pretty good, like, considering they're saying that this is our best season this year. We've 55 points. You know, so it goes to show Glenn Roeder had done quite well, and then it all just fell apart. And then when the results start going bad, it started causing friction between the management and obviously Di Canio, being the flamboyant person he was, and the clash of heads ended up that Glenn Roeder put his foot down as, I'm the manager, you do what I say, and dropped him out of the team. And it did cost us our place in the Premier League, definitely, you know.
Yeah, that day at Birmingham obviously was a difficult day for you as a West Ham fan. It's never easy when your team gets relegated. But we couldn't move on about talking about Paolo's interview in the tunnel.
Yeah, that was...
I mean, if ever Sky and their timing is perfect to find that emotion of a player, I think he knew himself that, you know, a lot of this had to be laid at, you know, his door and Glenn Roeder's door.
Yeah.
In terms of what happened. And he was very upset. You could see the send off, the lap of honor that he did with the fans. You could see when he came down the tunnel, he was absolutely distraught. And they kind of caught him on the hop, really, because he was nearly sailing by the reporter and the reporter caught him. And he simply broke down on camera.
Yeah, well, you see all these guys, and I'm going to say this straight out. You see these young lads today playing football, and they score a goal and they're kissing the badge, and oh yeah. 6 months later, they're playing for someone else, and they're doing exactly the same thing. Paolo Di Canio absolutely loved West Ham, and I think he was told prior to that game that if we're relegated, we're going to release you. So that's how we knew this was his last game for West Ham. It was never his choice to leave West Ham.
Yeah.
And as you say, the lap of honour, you see the response the fans gave him,
Yeah.
I've never seen a player be so emotional about leaving a club, because usually they're all looking at, I'm going for a bigger paycheck, or I'm going to a bigger club. This is a move on in my career. He was devastated, absolutely devastated.
Well, I'd say he knew he had unfinished business there, but he knew he wasn't going to be able to get the opportunity to right the wrong, if you like, that had happened between himself and Roeder, and that's always very difficult for a player where you have to leave under the wrong circumstances.
Yeah, and the other thing you got to remember as well, Glenn Roeder was suffering from a brain tumor at the time. So the Canio had to be very, very careful what he said about a very ill man, and like when we went into the championship, Trevor Brooken took over for the first 10 games in the championship. We won 9, we lost 1, which I think was Rotherham, a 2-0 away defeat to Rotherham. And then Alan Pardew came in. And, everyone that I know was saying, can you imagine Pardew managing the Canio? Because Alan Pardew at that time was all attack, and that's why, and that's how we came literally straight back up under Alan Pardew. Within 12 months of Alan Pardew, we were in an FA Cup final, So what could have been has always been there for us,
Yeah. Alan Pardew, famous now for the Pardew dance, as they call it, So shout out to Alan Pardew.
Yeah.
So he left and he went off to Charlton. Let's have a look at some of his. Let's have a look back at some of his moments. Obviously, the Wimbledon goal, is massive in his career, and obviously the goal you mentioned there against Chelsea as well was a phenomenal goal.
The Barthez goal at Man United, third round of the FA Cup. I love that.
That's just unbelievable, that goal.
Yeah.
We mentioned a few already, the catching at the ball of Everton and, the shedding the tear in May when he was interviewed and stuff like that. One that springs to mind, the Sunderland Newcastle game, where he runs down the sideline and he slides. This was the forerunner really to Mourinho's carry on later in life, wasn't it? Really.
But that's it. And Niall Quinn going on about, there's another expensive Italian suit that has to go to be cleaned,
Yeah.
But his time in management, like you remember at Swindon, he took a player off. The player gave him grief. He kicked him in the ass down the tunnel. The fight with your man Clark in the tunnel, where the two of them came to blows. Yeah. I mean, Di Canio, he's always been, and I don't know if that's him. I don't know if that's his passion just exploding, that he doesn't know when to draw the line and go, okay, I have to be a professional manager here. But to get into a physical fist fight with one of your players,
Yeah, I mean, he wore his heart in his sleeve. There's no doubt about
it. Definitely.
I mean, Joe Cole obviously knew what he was like. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I mean, we had Darren Waremount on the show last week. He's a big Sunderland fan. He's a writer based over in Canada at the moment. But he's a huge football fan. And he always remembers, one of his memories is Paolo Di Canio going down and remember the slide on the.
That's it, the pump in the fist.
And it ultimately cost Ruud Gullit his job as well. You know what I mean? Which must have been even very satisfying for Sunderland fans. He always mentions that slide. So anything else that sticks out in your mind? Any other sort of?
The biggest thing. Well, not the biggest thing, but a very good story. In 2010, Paolo Di Canio was invited back to Upton Park to play in a testimonial game. As it turns out, Di Canio scored a penalty in that game. But after the game, they were all in the private lounge, and the one of the board of directors had called Paolo Di Canio outside, and they'd actually put a plaque up naming the lounge the Paolo Di Canio Lounge in 2010, but never said that to him. And they unveiled it in front of him, and the guy, again, his Italian passion, he just burst into tears. He couldn't believe it, you know. Yeah. And I think that's why he was so peed off that Upton Park went, because his lounge went with it. You know, but they never told him, and he was just so emotional when he seen his name on this part of the stadium. Like, you know, it was a nice little tribute, but they never said that to him, you know. And then, you know, after his career in England, he went back to Lazio. Just so much controversy there. The fascist salutes, you know. I don't know. His whole career was basically had, again, another big black cloud over it, you know. But that was that Lazio support crew, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And he just bought into it. I don't know if it was a case of him trying to appease the crowd or whatever. Lazio got rid of him. He went to Roma, done one season in Roma, and then called it a day, you know. But like, people got to understand as well, in 1999, when Paolo Di Canio went to West Ham, he was 31 years of age.
Yeah.
He wasn't a young lad. He wasn't in his 20s. Alex Ferguson tried to sign him in 2001 at 32. So that goes to show you about the level of player he was, and how well respected he was among the other teams. And he was so fit as well. I mean, I don't ever remember hearing, I know Di Canio missed a couple of games through, you know, the odd muscle strain here and there, but he never got a UCL, or he never pulled a hamstring. You know, he just kept himself so fit, you know.
Yeah, he definitely looked after himself. He always, even when he was on the pitch, he always looked the part. You know what I mean? You never would turn around and go, just, he looks a bit out of shape there. He's carrying a bit of weight. He never really carried weight. He was always a strong player, like. But yeah, you touched on, talk to me about, like, obviously, you know, the Italian situation in terms of he never really got the chance really for Italy.
Yeah, well, I think in Dino Zoff was asked, coming up to Italia 90, or not Italia 90, sorry, excuse me, coming up to, I think it was the European Championships, about Di Canio going and playing. And he said, no, he's not going to play in the Italian team because he doesn't play in Italy. And I want all my players to play in Italy. Which, you know, at the time, you did Baggio and all them players there. And then when Trapattoni came in 2000, again, he was asked about Paolo Di Canio playing for Italy, and Trapattoni just brushed it off that he couldn't be managed, you know.
Yeah, well, he certainly wouldn't, you know. If we knew then what we know,
him and Dino Zoff would have had some going together.
Yeah, but I mean, if we knew then what we know now about Trapattoni, we would, you know, I mean, there was no chance those two would come together. I would say as well, I suppose timing in these things is always everything, you know, and like Italy were so spoiled in terms of the players and the quality of the players they had available to them as well. We do sometimes look back at some of the players we revere in the Premier League, the Premiership years and the Premier League years, and go, how did these guys never get that amount of caps or never get these amount of caps and all? But you have to, I mean, when you look at the wider picture of who was there, I mean, Roberto Baggio was unbelievable.
Ravanelli, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was just incredible pile of talent there that even that a man like Paolo Di Canio would be looked over, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been absolutely brilliant. Great to have you on again. You were an absolute star the other night on the Monday mashup, without a shadow of a doubt, you know. And it's good that that's all put by the wayside now, the ESL and stuff.
Yeah, well, I know that's not what we're here to talk about now, but the Milan coach says it's all on hold. He said Juventus are still in, Barcelona are still in, and Real Madrid are still in.
Yeah, well, it's amazing that the people that are all still in and it's on hold are the people who are struggling the most financially in the football world at the moment, you know. So
this is it. But I'm sure you'll probably talk about it next Monday. But I mean, should there be sanctions against these clubs for trying to do this to prevent something like this happening in the future? But I don't see how they can, because you don't want to punish the fans for something that had nothing got to do with them. You don't want to punish the players for something that had nothing got to do with them. So
what happens? And the coaches.
And the coaches, exactly. Like, you're a Liverpool man. I don't know if I believe Jurgen Klopp when he said he found out at the same time as the rest of the world. I'm sure they had to speak to him first, you know. But in saying that, the Liverpool owners came out and apologised to him first, you know.
Yeah, well, I think it was more a case where he was talking about the actual announcement that came out as opposed to the plans. I mean, everyone was aware that there was plans for the Super League. That was the worst kept secret in football. But it was the announcement that came out the other night. They probably weren't expecting it. But again, you know, as I say to people, how would you find a billionaire?
Yeah,
unless you find him $1 billion.
Yeah, well, this is it. And then, as you say, with Liverpool's owners, they're a company. You know what I mean? It's Fenway, you know. So, how do you find them? But I thought one thing that I thought was very interesting over the whole thing was Graham Souness on Sky Sports the other night. He turned around and said, Fenway, the Liverpool owners are never going to be able to go to Anfield again. The Glazers are never going to be able to go into Old Trafford again. You know, and I do agree with that. There was a protest at Man United this morning. Fans broke into the training ground. You know, so there's still a lot of fans are very unhappy about it. But to say, how do you punish these teams? You can't punish the coaches, you can't punish the players, you can't punish the fans. They knew nothing about it. They're the innocent parties here. There's talk about legislation coming in about foreign owners, you know, and this is what this is. This is 3 American owners. Liverpool's, Man United's and Arsenal's American owners looking for greed, you know.
I hate when legislation and politics comes into sport.
It should never be.
It should never
Definitely,
be. You know?
Totally agree. I mean, Boris Johnson should have kept his nose out of it. He's nothing to do with sport, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. But this has been your Legend Series, Paolo Di Canio. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Also available on Anchor for the audio versions of the shows. Alan, absolute pleasure talking to you on this retrospective look back at Paolo Di Canio's amazing career at West Ham. It's been an absolute pleasure. And no doubt we'll catch you again on the Monday mashup.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem, Niall.
Thanks a million for coming on. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, Niall. Thanks. Bye.